According to the National Electrical Code, powder-actuated nail guns are generally not permitted for securing electrical fixtures to concrete ceilings. National Electrical Code Section 300.4d states that fixtures shall be securely supported by approved means, and powder-actuated fastening is not listed as an approved means of support. There are several concerns with using powder-actuated nail guns for this purpose. Firstly, damage to concrete is a significant concern. Powder-actuated nails can damage concrete by cracking or spalling it, which can weaken the ceiling's structural integrity. Secondly, insufficient holding power can be an issue. Powder-actuated nails may not have sufficient holding power to securely support fixtures, especially in heavy or suspended applications. Thirdly, there is a potential fire hazard. The propellant used in powder-actuated nail guns can release gases that ignite flammable materials. Approved methods of supporting fixtures to concrete ceilings include several alternatives. One is concrete anchors, using threaded or expansion bolts that are driven into holes drilled in the concrete. Another alternative is toggle bolts, which are bolts that expand behind the ceiling surface when tightened. Expansion anchors, which are metal anchors that expand when tightened, gripping the concrete, are also an option. You could also use screws drilled into the concrete, but only approved concrete screws should be used, and they should be of sufficient length and spacing to provide adequate support. It is recommended not to use powder-actuated nail guns to secure electrical fixtures to concrete ceilings. Use approved methods of support such as concrete anchors, toggle bolts, or screws drilled into the concrete. Ensure that the fixtures are securely supported to prevent potential hazards. To elaborate further on the National Electrical Code, it's essential to understand its role in ensuring electrical safety. The National Electrical Code, or NEC, is a comprehensive set of standards and guidelines for safe electrical installations. It's updated regularly to reflect the latest technologies and best practices. Compliance with the NEC is often mandated by local and national regulations, making it a crucial resource for electricians, contractors, and inspectors. Section 300.4d specifically addresses the support of electrical fixtures. The NEC emphasizes the importance of using approved methods for securing fixtures to prevent hazards such as falling fixtures, electrical shock, and fire. The term approved typically refers to equipment and methods that have been tested and listed by a recognized testing laboratory, such as Underwriters Laboratories, OIL. These laboratories evaluate products to ensure they meet established safety standards. When considering alternatives to powder-actuated nail guns, it's important to understand the different types of concrete anchors available. Concrete anchors provide a reliable means of attaching fixtures and equipment to concrete surfaces. There are several types of concrete anchors, each designed for specific applications and load requirements. One common type is mechanical expansion anchors. These anchors are inserted into pre-drilled holes and then expanded to create a tight grip against the concrete. Expansion is typically achieved by tightening a bolt or nut, which causes the anchor to expand. Another type is chemical anchors, which use adhesives to bond the anchor to the concrete. Chemical anchors are often used in applications where high pull-out strength is required. When selecting concrete anchors, it's important to consider the load capacity, concrete strength, and environmental conditions. The load capacity refers to the amount of weight the anchor can safely support. Concrete strength varies depending on the type of concrete and curing process. Environmental conditions, such as exposure to moisture or corrosive substances, can affect the longevity of the anchor. Toggle bolts are another option for supporting fixtures to concrete ceilings. Toggle bolts are designed to be used in hollow or cavity walls, but they can also be used in concrete ceilings where there is access to the back side of the ceiling. Toggle bolts consist of a bolt and a wing-like nut that folds flat for insertion through a hole. Once inserted, the wings spring open to provide a wide bearing surface against the back of the ceiling. This distributes the load over a larger area, providing a more secure hold. When using toggle bolts in concrete ceilings, it's important to ensure that the hole is properly sized and that the toggle wings are fully engaged. It's also important to consider the thickness of the ceiling and the weight of the fixture being supported. Expansion anchors are similar to mechanical expansion anchors, but they are designed specifically for use in concrete and masonry. Expansion anchors are inserted into pre-drilled holes and then expanded to create a tight grip against the surrounding material. Expansion is typically achieved by driving a pin or wedge into the anchor body. When using expansion anchors, it's important to follow the manufacturer's instructions for drilling hole size and installation torque. It's also important to consider the edge distance, which is the distance from the anchor to the edge of the concrete. Insufficient edge distance can reduce the anchor's load capacity. Screws drilled into concrete are another option for supporting fixtures, but it's important to use screws that are specifically designed for concrete. Concrete screws are typically made of hardened steel and have special threads that cut into the concrete as they are driven in. When using concrete screws, it's important to drill a pilot hole that is slightly smaller than the screw diameter. This helps to ensure that the screw engages properly and provides a secure hold. It's also important to consider the screw length and spacing. The screw should be long enough to penetrate the concrete to a sufficient depth, and the screws should be spaced properly to distribute the load evenly. In addition to selecting the appropriate fastening method, it's also important to ensure that the electrical connections are made safely and correctly. All electrical connections should be made inside approved junction boxes. Junction boxes provide a safe and secure enclosure for electrical connections, protecting them from physical damage and preventing accidental contact. When making electrical connections, it's important to use the correct wire connectors and to follow the manufacturer's instructions. Wire connectors should be sized appropriately for the wire gauge and should be tightened securely. It's also important to ensure that all ground connections are properly made. Grounding provides a path for fault current to flow back to the source, helping to prevent electrical shock. In summary, when supporting electrical fixtures to concrete ceilings, it's important to follow the National Electrical Code and to use approved methods of support. Powder-actuated nail guns are generally not permitted for this purpose due to concerns about damage to concrete, insufficient holding power, and fire hazards. Approved alternatives include concrete anchors, toggle bolts, expansion anchors, and screws drilled into concrete. It's also important to ensure that the electrical connections are made safely and correctly. It is important to mention that the NEC is not law unless adopted by a local jurisdiction. Jurisdictions, such as states, counties, cities, or other governmental entities, adopt codes and standards such as the NEC by reference in their own laws. The NEC is updated every 3 years, and it is the responsibility of the local jurisdiction to adopt the latest edition of the code. When performing any electrical work, it is always best practice to consult with the local authority having jurisdiction to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and standards. Also, it is critical to understand the specific requirements of the manufacturer of the fixtures being installed. Some fixtures may have specific requirements for mounting that must be followed in order to maintain the product warranty and ensure proper and safe operation. In addition, the type of concrete and its condition are critical factors to consider when selecting an appropriate anchoring method. Concrete strength varies depending on the mix design, curing process, and age of the concrete. It is important to select an anchor that is compatible with the concrete strength. In some cases, it may be necessary to perform pull-out tests to verify the anchor's holding power. Furthermore, when drilling into concrete, it is important to be aware of any embedded utilities, such as electrical conduits, water pipes, or gas lines. Drilling into these utilities can create a significant safety hazard. It is always a good practice to use a concrete scanner to locate any embedded utilities before drilling. In addition to the NEC, other standards and guidelines may apply to the installation of electrical fixtures. For example, the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, publishes standards on fire safety, including standards for the installation of electrical equipment in hazardous locations. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, also has regulations on electrical safety in the workplace. It is important to be familiar with all applicable standards and regulations before performing any electrical work. In conclusion, the safe and proper installation of electrical fixtures requires careful planning, attention to detail, and compliance with all applicable codes and standards. The use of powder-actuated nail guns for securing electrical fixtures to concrete ceilings is generally not permitted due to safety concerns. Approved alternatives, such as concrete anchors, toggle bolts, expansion anchors, and screws drilled into concrete should be used instead. Always consult with a qualified electrician or engineer if you have any questions or concerns about the proper installation of electrical fixtures. Furthermore, the selection of the appropriate anchoring method depends on several factors, including the type of fixture, the type of concrete, the load requirements, and the environmental conditions. It is important to consider all of these factors when selecting an anchoring method to ensure a safe and reliable installation. It is also important to follow the manufacturer's instructions for installation and to use the correct tools and equipment. Proper installation is critical to ensure that the anchor performs as intended and that the fixture is securely supported. In addition to the mechanical aspects of the installation, it is also important to consider the electrical safety aspects. All electrical connections should be made inside approved junction boxes, and all wiring should be properly insulated and protected. Grounding is also essential to prevent electrical shock. Finally, it is important to inspect the installation after it is complete to ensure that everything is properly installed and that there are no safety hazards. A thorough inspection can help to identify any potential problems before they become serious. By following these guidelines, you can help to ensure safe and reliable installation of electrical fixtures in concrete ceilings. The importance of using a qualified electrician for electrical work cannot be overstated. Electricians undergo extensive training and apprenticeship programs to learn the proper techniques and safety procedures for electrical installations. They are also familiar with the NEC and other applicable codes and standards. Attempting to perform electrical work without the proper training and experience can be dangerous and can lead to serious injury or even death. In addition to the safety risks, improper electrical work can also damage equipment and create fire hazards. It is always best to hire a qualified electrician to perform any electrical work, no matter how small or simple it may seem. A qualified electrician will have the knowledge, skills, and experience to perform the work safely and correctly. They will also be able to identify any potential problems and recommend solutions. Furthermore, a qualified electrician will be able to provide documentation of the work performed, which may be required for insurance purposes or for future inspections. In summary, when it comes to electrical work, it is always best to err on the side of caution and hire a qualified electrician. The cost of hiring a qualified electrician is a small price to pay for the peace of mind that comes with knowing that the work has been done safely and correctly. Also, regarding the question of using powder-actuated nail guns for supporting electrical fixtures, it is worth noting that the NEC is not the only source of information on this topic. Other organizations, such as the National Electrical Manufacturers Association, or NEMA, also publish standards and guidelines on electrical equipment and installations. NEMA standards provide detailed information on the design, construction, and performance of electrical equipment. They also provide guidance on the proper installation and use of electrical equipment. It is important to be familiar with NEMA standards when working with electrical equipment. In addition to NEMA, other organizations, such as the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, or IEE, also publish standards and guidelines on electrical engineering. IEE standards cover a wide range of topics, including power generation, transmission, distribution, and utilization. IEE standards are widely used by engineers and other professionals in the electrical industry. It is important to be familiar with IEE standards when designing and installing electrical systems. In conclusion, when it comes to electrical work, it is important to consult with all available resources, including the NEC, NEMA standards, IEE standards, and other applicable codes and standards. By following these guidelines, you can help to ensure safe and reliable electrical installation.